Hello everyone, welcome to another Power Talk with Archana. Resilience enables any organization or company to cope up with and recover from unexpected developments, maintaining the ability to adapt when demands go beyond organizations' customary operating boundaries. The leaders make it possible along with their teams as they nurture their teams to face adversities intelligently and without panicking. And that's what my guest Jasrita Dhir is all about. Jasrita is a part of my professional network and based in Gurugram, India. From Max Healthcare to Fortise Healthcare, she's had a rewarding career for more than 15 years. Awardee of the Money Controlled Digital Marketing Award 2018, Jasrita Dhir is the Associate Vice President Brand and Marketing at Fortise Healthcare. Profiled as one of the six future game changers in healthcare industry by HealthBiz India, she's a firm believer of purposeful existence beyond business performance. Motivated by complex business challenges, she's an expert in collaborating with cross-functional resources and achieving business goals, keeping her work ethics in the forefront. She knows the art of interpersonal communication and relationship management just like the back of her hand. Let's welcome Jasrita on board. Hello, Jasrita. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you, Archana. Thank you for having me today.
Absolute pleasure, Jasrita. Tell me, Jasrita, resilience is one quality we expect from leaders, but staying resilient and strong and those qualities and to keep up your team together in challenging time, I think this is something really exceptional and definitely expected out of all the leaders today. But how did you manage, how did you re-engineer all your strategies to hold the fort during COVID-19?
Yes, it's many questions rolled into one, and perhaps we could do an entire talk just on this one question. And the primary reason for that, Archana, is because I don't think anyone saw this coming, right? This generation, this living generation, has not seen something like this. I mean, we talk about the Spanish flu, but we only read it from the history books and the chronicles, right? None of us were around to see what happened during that time. So therefore, I think everyone has had to find that strength within to be able to respond to an ever-changing environment, something that they were not accustomed to, something that they were not prepared for, and something that your textbooks do not prepare you for, right? So I think everyone has had, so no one saw it coming, number one, that has to be said. Everyone in the beginning was chasing the tail of this pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the classic case of trying to change the wheels of the car while the car is still moving on a wobbly road, right? So it's a classic case. So I think everyone has had their own journey. Everyone has taken their own pace. However, the essential workers industry, and healthcare is at the very pyramid of it, at the top of the pyramid, have had to, whatever your internal challenges or whatever is, you have had to respond to it because there are lives at stake. And because, everyone expects you to come to work every day to be able to deliver your best, right? So while for a large section of the population, work from home was the preferred option, but our doctors, our nurses, our technicians had to show up at work every day, so whether it's the risk of carrying home the virus, because they also have vulnerable populations at home, whether it is underage children or aging parents with comorbidities, right? But even then they had to sort of show up at work every day. There is a significant risk to themselves, to their own safety and security, because such is the virulence and the nature of the disease that they will go down to the virus, at some point in time or the other, no matter how much precautions they take, right? So as a non-medical worker in healthcare, who's not a doctor, who's not a frontline worker, but who's part of the support team, our role was to support them, enable them, and facilitate our online, our frontline workers as best as we could. And there wasn't much time to be able to do that, so this is not one of those art projects where you can take your time to refine it. No, there's a pandemic raging, there's a crisis, there are people who are falling to the virus, and you need to respond like that, right?
Right.
So that's a bit of a background. But three things that I can personally talk about that I did, at least with my team, is that since all of us, for the beginning of the lockdown, for a large part of the lockdown, were working from home, and now also are largely working from home, we created the work from home rules, that
Yeah.
even though we are not physically going to be connected, but virtually, we have to be connected all the time. The second thing that we
Right.
set is that we have to be available round the clock. Okay. And no human
Yeah.
being can be available round the clock, which means that there's a bit of a rostering that we were doing in the team,
Yes.
where you're allowing downtime to some, and then
Sure.
uptime to some. And when you do this sort of a rostering, then you are available around the clock, 24/7, even on Saturdays, Sundays, 7 a.m., 12 p.m., 12 a.m., whatever have you. So that's the second
Yeah.
thing. The third is that digital as an industry, if you look at, and I'm not just talking about the brands that I work for. By the way, all that I'm talking about, the views are personal. I think this disclaimer needs to be put out, right? Views are personal, not organizational. If you look at the entire industry, it is not a digital prime. It is not one of those early adopters. It's a bit of it's a tech laggard or a digital laggard sort of an industry, right? But within
Yeah.
that, the paradigm shifted overnight. A doctor can no longer touch the pulse, okay, or touch the
Yeah.
patient and feel. This whole thing of touching the patient and figuring out, right? Something that you've been taught all this while, something that's muscle
Yeah.
memory to you, is thrown out of the equation, and yet you got to
Right.
treat patients. So how do you do that, right? That's where the role of technology came in, and that's where my team, along with IT, along with medical strategy and operation groups, came up with our virtual consults platform.
Wow.
The lockdown was announced on 24th of March, and we launched our
Yeah.
platform on the midnight of 27th of March. So within
Wow.
72 hours, our platform was live, to be able to enable our doctors to consult virtually, and, contain the risk to our patients and to our healthcare workers alike, right?
Yeah.
So I think these are some of the things that we did. So I think, if I sort of sum up this answer, then adapted to the new paradigm which was there, right?
Yeah.
You know, looked at what we had, and therefore what we could scale up, because you couldn't come up with a new product in 3 days. That you couldn't do
Yeah.
that, right? So that you have to think on your feet, and you have to be quick thinking and resourceful with what you're doing. So that's the
Yeah.
second thing. Third, if there is a new equilibrium, if there is a new equation, you have to respond with new set of rules, which is how we
Yeah.
were working to be able to support them. And fourth is leading the digital adoption with cross-functional teams, right? These, in a nutshell, are four things that we did, and which has held us in good stead so far.
Yeah. Great. I think it's all about presence of mind, and taking those decisions, when as and when situations arise. And also, as you spoke about, it was actually a 360-degree, patients were treated earlier, I mean, doctors not touching them and still giving them the best of treatment, and the entire team being available there. And also a lot of learning and, unlearning for not only patients, but also for the doctors and the entire team in focus. I think, yes, of course,
Correct.
a lot has happened, and this has also been quite a a moment when there was a lot of communication at every level, be it horizontal, vertical, internal, external. I think all the channels were very well, in the stage where everybody knew everything and knew their side of work, their nature of work, and what they had to implement and make things possible. Integrated communication, of course, plays a big role in fighting any turbulent situation or any uprooting situation, and pandemic definitely has been no less. So what measures did you require to establish, or to take that, that could bring about that effect without batting an eyelid?
Yeah. So integrated marketing communications, essentially is that all channels of communication are sort of employed, and
Yeah.
an omni-channel presence of
Yeah.
whatever you're putting out. That's essentially what you're talking about. You got to take a
Yeah.
step back, and for it to be integrated, first of all, you have to be integrated as a team within.
Yeah.
The information flow internally has to be flowing well. those information flows should not be broken, right? So of course we had our weekly meetings and our daily check-ins, etc., so that any at that in the beginning of March and towards end of March and beginning April, I don't know if you remember, but advisories from the government and everyone was changing every day. So there's a WHO, there's a Center of Disease Control, then there's Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and the advisories on what to do and what not to do, what to follow and what not to follow was kind of changing all the time. So we needed to know what is that one version of truth that we are going ahead with, right? What is factually verified. So one balance that we had to maintain was between ensuring factual veracity and the speed of response, the agility of response. And that these two do not go hand in hand, okay? Because if you're going to be verifying all of this, then your response is going to be slow. If your response is slow, perhaps it's right, but maybe you have missed the bus, because let's not forget, we were fighting a pandemic. So one is that we were trying to strike this balance between, the factual veracity being confirmed and the agility of response. This is something that we were cognizant of all the time, and we were trying to consciously follow, that balance. That's one. The other is that to be able to put out an integrated communications front outside, we first had to be integrated within. And therefore, those, even though we were working from home environments, whether they were weekly calls or they were periodic sort of check-ins or status updates, milestone updates, all of that was being done. One version of truth was being checked, right, with the relevant medical strategy operations group and whoever. And then we just went out with omni-channel presence as far as the digital and social media channels were concerned, because no other channels, made any sense at that point in time. And also one didn't have the money and the resources to be able to do it. So completely harnessing the power of social media, using the good old way of calling up your patients, and updating them as to say that you don't have to come, you can stay at home. Here is how you can virtually consult. If you need any assistance, this is the number, putting out some communication aids, because we are present in metros. We are also present in tier 2, tier 3 cities like Ludhiana, Amritsar, etc. And there, the digital penetration is not going to be half as good as what it is in Bangalore, for instance, right? So put out some language agnostic sort of do-it-yourself videos to be able, YouTube videos to say, go here, click here, with those arrows, making it very, very explicit for people to be able to follow, how it is to be done. Trainings and retrainings for our own call center people, for our doctor teams, etc., to be able to say, this is how you go about and, with the new virtual consults platform, etc. So training and retraining of our resources. These are some of the things. This is some of the preparation that went into putting together this integrated marketing communications and the omni-channel presence.
Wow, I think that's quite a lot. And what really impressed me here is, making it multilingual platform for people to access it, because obviously, and Fortis is not only in the metros, it's also in the the first and the second tier cities. And I think it's a very, very intelligent move, and making it more, more and more people to access that information and get help, and self-help, I think that is something, again, very, very novel and important, because everybody was not able to reach hospitals at that time. There were so many constraints one had to go through. I think that was a very intelligent move, and that can happen only when the entire team is very well informed about what is happening in the system, who's doing what, how the information flows from one end to the other. I think that's really great.
And while we've spoken a lot about, the whole physical health sort of, there is also the side of the mental health, issues that came up during the pandemic, and not just for people who had mental health issues earlier, but even healthy people so far. When you're incarcerated in your house, when you're not going to be able to see people, when all that you have is you and your machine, and also some uncertainty about whether it's job losses or salary cuts or what have you, right? At every age group, mental health issues were compounding. And therefore, as a pro bono service to the nation, what also Fortise's Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences Department did was to, run a free stress helpline, and we're still running it.
Wow.
And it's available
Wow.
in 15 languages, right? So
Wow.
just to throw in some numbers, pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, we used to get about 250 to 300, 400 calls a week. Today, we are getting about 250 to 300 calls per day. That's the kind of load that you have. And that's where, vernacular and language comes in, because when you're stressed out, okay, you want to express yourself in your native language, in your vernacular language. And therefore you want to have a counselor on the other end who speaks your language. So in the 15 Indic languages, we are running this pro bono service, our mental health and behavioral sciences team. And that has given, that's just as important than, the virtual consults that you're doing or the emergency treatments that we are doing, because mental health issues are getting compounded even within the healthy population.
Wow, that talks so much about the brand Fortis Healthcare, and these are the things that that actually build the brand loyalty. And I think it plays a very big role, a very big part to retain your customer with you, to your clients with you, your patients with you, to keep coming to Fortis Healthcare. I think this is what is required. Going forward, I think we would need certain level of consistency and keep innovating our business strategies to accommodate the new normal. So what would you like to add there? Because I think COVID is here to stay with us for some more time. I mean, we don't see the curve flattening anytime soon. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So three parts to it. One is we need to talk about attitudes and behaviors which are going to last us that long, because as you mentioned, coronavirus is not going to go away anywhere. So what are the strategies for the long haul so that you don't burn out, right? So that's one that I'll touch. The second is, of course, innovation, because you do have to innovate. Anything that was relevant earlier is not going to be relevant anymore. So we'll talk about that. And the third is, the new normal, and how we are sort of helping transition into the new normal. So I'll talk about all three. Let's talk about the first. What are the kind of behaviors that we have to now inculcate, the kind of mental toughness to be able to last the long haul? Because you're absolutely right. The WHO, chief had also mentioned that COVID, coronavirus might not just go away. It might become a part of our virus pool, pretty much like HIV and others, right? Unfortunately. I think on the employee side and on the team side, we have to, from work from home, transition to work from anywhere, right? So there is that people can work from anywhere where they are. I think that is one sort of mindset that we have to inculcate and we have to foster among people. The downside of work from home or work from anywhere for longer period is that you have to really keep checking the mental health of your team members. You have to keep doing those checks, etc. You have to allow them for downtime. You have to allow them to be away from devices when somebody else in the team picks up for them, and then somebody else. So you do a round robin sort of a thing, because this 24/7 digital connectedness is not good for anyone. This is not how human wires our brain. We are not wired to be wired in, 24/7. So I think that's on the sort of employee side. We have to prepare for adversity. In our cultures, in businesses, we do not prepare for adversity. Okay, we prepare for we'll meet the target, or if we shall fall a little short of the target, but we do not prepare for adversity. And the way we are seeing that there could be a second wave of the virus and the third wave of surprise the virus, until the time the vaccine is not available, mass produced and in huge numbers with everyone, or herd immunity, till such stage is reached, we have to be able to prepare for adversity, right? So I think a lot of adversity planning and very honest, frank, candid discussions need to happen. So I think that is on the employee and the team and that side. Talking about innovation, something you can look up, or I'll be happy to share after this interview. There is our hospital in Bangalore, which has come up with a technique of using UV rays to be able to, that's a very frugal innovation that they have done, that with UV rays, they can reuse the masks, Now, reusing of masks, which is there, of N95 or whatever, it's very, very important, because on the one hand, we are trying to deal with a health pandemic. On the other hand, we're not realizing that the plastic waste is going up, and the biomedical waste disposal, somewhere those norms are not being followed. So from one pandemic, we don't know how much we'll save ourselves from it. That only time will tell. We are still living it. The jury's out. But another pandemic, for sure, we are creating a recipe for disaster. Okay, right? Is on the way. We're creating it. We can see that coming. So I think those sort of innovations, our healthcare frontline workers are doing. And our job is to obviously be able to, amplify it, talk about it, and get maximum people to reap the benefit of it, right? So that's on, on the product side of it. On the marketing side, innovation is, of course, one has to think digital, more digital than ever before. And within digital also think mobile. I think so. That's what we are doing. And because the costs have skyrocketed, but the revenues are dipping, in that sort of a scenario, for another 1 year, one doesn't see that many healthcare brands will have big monies to pump into advertising, okay? And in such a scenario, organic becomes very, very important. The organic pull that you have becomes very important. And whenever organic becomes important, more than paid media, then content assumes importance. So content marketing is going to become more important. It's going to assume a place of significance more than before. Content marketing, again, the 3 V's: more video, more voice, more vernacular, and in frugal budgets, etc. So I think that's on the innovation side. In the new normal, there is this, we are trying to do something which is #living with COVID. And that's all issued in public interest. Okay, so what is it? As people are coming from lockdown into the unlock mode, organizations, offices are opening up, and not everyone is prepared as to how to open an office safely. Okay, people will start commuting soon, in the metro, in public transport. So how do you travel safely? How do you operate an ATM safely? How do you buy your groceries? How do you do your laundry safely? So there is a set of advisories which we are putting out on all our social media platforms. Okay, It's got nothing to do with business per se, but as a leading healthcare provider of the country, one thinks it's our responsibility to be able to help the transition from lockdown to unlock. As people navigate the new normal, we're trying to normalize that conversation of living with COVID, and that's why we call it the new normal, normalized. So those are some of the things that we are trying to do. In a nutshell, I think we'll have to have relevant content. If you want to be there top of mind, if you want to have top of mind awareness of the consumer, we'll have to have relevant content. And content is relevant when you marry content with context. Make it contextual to the consumer journey that that individual is in, to the life cycle that that individual is in. And success will come your way.
Yeah, I think you're very right. It requires a lot of planning for sure, but as you very rightly said, it has to be something very real. The content is going to play a very big role here. Social media is completely taken over the entire scene, whatever the industry be. We have to be very real and stay focused to what the customer wants, touch on their emotional side, and that is how we can connect with them and tell them, hello, we are here in this phase of transition, making the new normal the normal for you. And also I feel it's going to be so fast that people will realize that maybe the new normal is again going to be a different normal, maybe 10 months or 5 months down the line. People will keep having, so there has to be a shift each time, new normal every time. I think it's going to keep changing, and we have to keep adapting ourselves to this new normal until the entire situation stabilizes. And when it stabilizes, we really don't know. All we can do is keep ourselves prepared for that and stay attuned with the technology, stay abreast with technology, and stay in that energy with the customer to make them feel that we are here to serve them and stay with them and face this together. I think this is absolutely right. What else would you like to add, Jasrita, as we wind up this conversation, this lovely, enlightening conversation with you?
Want to capture from the entire conversation is that be prepared for the long haul. Uh, you know, in, prepare for adversity, have the mental toughness, and the resilience, because this is not going away anytime soon. And yes, one thing that we didn't talk about, and I'd like to talk about here, is our job as marketers and communicators is also to inject some positivity and hope. So
Yeah.
while there are a lot of scary numbers out there, that highest ever spike in a day, and these many people, down with the virus, etc., there are also
Yeah.
stories of hope. There are numbers of hope. Those are the numbers of recoveries, and I think we need to amplify those numbers. I believe all of us need to do our bit to amplify those stories of hope. So when a 83-year-old gets well from the virus and gets discharged, when a 91-year-old man, uh, gets discharged from a hospital, hale and hearty, those are the those are the videos that we need to make viral, and those are the stories that we need to celebrate, saying, if they can do it, so can we. I think I like to end with that hope is very important. Hope is a drug for resilience, hope and optimism, and it's our job to sort of amplify it. I'd like to end with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think hope is everything. One should definitely be targeting that. And definitely, as you said, we need to make more videos and create that awareness that this is not the end of the world. There is a light waiting for us at the end of the tunnel, and this tunnel is ending very soon. Absolutely right. Great, great, Jasrita. Thanks a lot for coming on board and sharing this wonderful message with our people, my audience. I'm sure they're going to benefit out of this. I wish you all the best and stay connected with us.
Stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jasrita. Thanks a lot. That was Jasrita Dhir for you. Necessity is indeed the mother of invention. When adversities hit us, we come up with novel ideas and innovation to fight and combat the situations. And that is what resilience is all about. How quick we learn to unlearn and recover and to put the engine back on track with our presence of mind is what gets the ball rolling. And of course, not to forget, hope and positivity, two things that really gets our efforts multiplied and help us fight adversities. I wish all of you the very best of luck and stay tuned for more.